Spain are your new champions of the World Cup for 2026. We discuss it next on Beyond the Locker Room. Congratulations to Spain. They get it done. They were considered prohibitive favorites by the odds makers before we started. I think 23-5 might have been the odds I saw. I think discussed about a month ago. They definitely showed it throughout the tournament. They were actually dominant in a lot of phases of the game, especially on the back line. I believe they gave up one goal throughout the entire tournament, which is kind of crazy to think. They were fantastic. That back four and the goalkeeping was top notch. They definitely organized beyond belief. They have a system, a philosophy, and they don't mess around. They move the ball quickly. They try to actually control possession, which they did. Boy, did they ever in this matchup. But they take care of Argentina. The goal happens in the 106th minute. From Ferran Torres coming off, super sub. He came off the bench pretty early actually in regulation time, but he got the goal. Just to give a shout out in this case here to Nico Williams, who was fantastic. I thought he was the best player on the pitch for either side, and I figured that if they were going to score the goal, he would be in the middle of it and right on cue with the great header there on the baseline. Got right back. Torres finished it off. Beautiful stuff. And well earned, well deserved in a myriad of ways, and we'll get to that when we deal with the Argentina side of things. But Spain are your champions. They won in 2010 in South Africa against the Orange Crush. They get it done here again against Argentina. That now puts them I was talking to my buddy who were watching the game. I guess the question is now, I see Spain a little bit like. They're a little bit like Connecticut, the Connecticut Huskies, where they're like UConn in the sense they're kind of the new blue blood in college basketball. UConn now you have to throw in there as a blue blood with who you consider as the typical blue bloods in college basketball: Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, UCLA, the usual suspects. And now UConn's been entered into that fraternity. I think the same could be said with Spain at this point here, considering they now won 2 Euros and now 2 World Cups. They've been a dominant side, or at least pretty much a top side now for about over a decade. And also, you have to look at it from a standpoint, they have multiple World Cups, which puts them in a small group of, I'm doing this off the dome, folks, but pretty much we're talking about Argentina, Brazil, Italy, Germany, and I think that might be it. Oh, France. So that, those are the blue bloods right there, right? So, there you go. And they're right there with them now with 2. So, props to them. They don't have like the typical one huge uber star. Obviously, Yamal might grow into that. He wasn't quite right, perhaps, when he coming back off an injury, but he didn't really show his best stuff in this tournament. But there's such a and so much depth around them that it doesn't matter who's there, be if it's Ferran, if it's it was Marino. Like, they just have dudes, man. They just have dudes. They have dudes, man. And I think it just showed that depth. They're so young too in a lot of ways that they just outclass Argentina from the tip, man. From the moment the ball dropped, man, they did the countdown. It was pretty much like it almost seemed like if Argentina almost seemed like they knew what they were against. Maybe they watched the tape against France and they're like, oh damn, we're in some trouble. We just have to just play back and just hope they make a mistake and we just jump all over it. Because I'll get in Argentina next, but I think Spain, give them props. Rodrigo in this case, he's I guess kind of their man of the tournament. I can't remember the actual official name of it is, but he in the midfield. I mentioned the back line; they were fantastic, and they all they found a way. Goalkeeper was tight. They managing coaching was fantastic. How they balled up explosive teams like France and Argentina. To be fair, like it was really incredible to see, that they were definitely a cut above everybody else. So props go to Spain. And, I guess this is a good segue to the other side of things, because it's hard not to actually ignore what we saw for about 2.5 to 3 hours. So let's get into the losers in this case, Argentina. Looking for a t-shirt that says more than just your style? Beyond the Locker Room tees are made with premium quality fabric that's soft, comfortable, and built to last. Perfect whether you're at the game, at the gym, or out with friends. Every design is inspired by the mindset, passion, and culture of sports, giving you something that stands out wherever you go. Shop the full collection today at www.beyondlockerroom.store. Wear the mindset, live the game. Beyond the Locker Room. There's probably a reason why probably almost besides Messi fans and folks that actually are Argentinians, why pretty much I would make a safe guess pretty much the entire globe was rooting for Spain. And for a myriad of reasons, to use that phrase once again. If I think I might have said it before, but I won't get into the stuff off the pitch. Why maybe some folks are not too fond of Argentina for, as I said before, for a myriad of reasons. However, even if you're not, there's plenty on the pitch for you not to like what they're about, man. It was despicable. I'm sorry, I can't find any other way to say it. It was absolutely despicable. You know, I said before, they look like they were coming in defeated to begin with. And let's just start with that, and now escalate to the other stuff. The fact that Argentina didn't even look like they were interested in actually playing anything positive at all. And I made a tweet out sometime during the match or at the end of the match. I said, Argentina, you're trying to play like the Azzurri. What I meant by that was, and I know shots at my Italian friends are listening to the show, but Italy's been notorious for years being a defensive brand of football, and that's it. That's what they're about, and they wait for the opportunities, and if not, they'll take their chances in PKs. And sometimes that's worked out for them, and quite a few famous times that has not worked out well for Italy. It's definitely, I'm sure, amongst Italian fans and Azzurri fans and football fans, they're fan of that side, the philosophy, and maybe trying to move forward and become more aggressive. I don't think Italy doesn't have the talent, but that's a choice they've made. I think Argentina took the same choice in this particular game, considering that we saw Argentina being quite an explosive offense when they choose to. They had like 3 comebacks in the last 3 games prior to this. And, and even when, and be fair, even when they weren't even when they're down in those games or, or even tied in those games at times, like in Cabo Verde's example, like they always seem positive. I put it that way, as far as, looking to attack, looking for opportunities, trying to probe for opportunities, even when the games were like at draws at the time or 0-0. What we saw in this final was like a team looked like they knew they were overwhelmed and decided they were just going to play it safe and hope and pray they got the PKs. And almost for the game, like this was the worst of football, worst of soccer, wherever you want to name it, but it was the worst of it. This is like for this to be your signature moment as a sport, and to see that this is the equivalent, and this is the type of stuff that makes changes in this case for organizations, right? This is the equivalent of what we saw many years ago in the 90s, where we saw just slugging out, and it was getting progressively worse by the time we get to like the 2000s, where you're seeing games at 72, 68. And at that point, they're like, you know what? We got to make changes. Ergo, rule changes when it comes to officiating players, rule changes on making things easier for the offense. We've seen these type of scenarios happen in plenty of sports. I just use basketball as one. There's plenty, every sport has done this in some form or fashion to shift the pendulum the other way. And sometimes it goes the other way. They make it more defensive. Maybe it ends up looking too arcadey and they bring it back the other way. But for the most part, to be fair to FIFA and overall to many of the organizations around the world, and to various teams, that have moved towards a more positive style of football, there's definitely a lot of reasons why. I think the Brazilians have always been kind of the benchmark on that. I think other teams to some extent have used the philosophy that Brazil has had and incorporate in their own ways in their own programs, including Spain, where, Spain, France, others, where they just play a much more, not just attractive style of football, but also like something that's actually being positive and aggressive. And not necessarily just also Brazil. I mean, Germany still plays very positive. They're not necessarily have a style like Brazil. They play more with set pieces. That's always been their thing. But I never think that when I watch Germany, the Germany's not playing positive. The Germany's always kind of looking for ways to attack. So like what we watched in this final with Argentina was disgusting as far as like philosophy wise and actually trying to put on the best show. Can you imagine you paid $12,000 for a ticket for that in that hot sun in New Jersey? Eee, not good. I heard an interesting point on one that I think the ESPN FC in the post game mentioning about even the selection of MetLife Stadium as being the final was an interesting choice. I'll put it as an interesting choice. They were a little more colorful their choice as far as they thought is. They pretty much said there was of all the stadiums of all the U.S. stadiums they had, they thought the pitch, the stadium was the worst of all of them. There's an argument to that. If you're an NFL fan, I wouldn't say Miami because the Heat, they played that one the Saturday. England and France, they put on a great show. I won't lie. They got away because it's actually a cooler day in Miami at 3:00. But a 3:00 game in Miami made no sense to me to begin with. But they got away with it from a weather perspective. However, Miami Stadium overall, pretty nice looking stadium. I'm concerned about the heat, but there's other ones there on the West Coast, like Los Angeles has a great one. Obviously, it's already hosted a Super Bowl. The one in Santa Clara, obviously, where the Niners play now, it's a pretty new stadium as well too. Nice. Seattle, you know me, the Seahawks fan. Dallas has a nice one too. What I'm saying is there's opportunities that's just on the West Coast. I mean, if I move further along, we could have played in Boston in this case as well too, like or Foxborough. Like there's opportunities in other spots where I think you could you could have had different opportunities at different stadiums besides New York, New Jersey. But hey, it's New York, man. It's big time, right? So you get the rationale that way. However, I think overall the quality of the pitch in MetLife. I'm not a football expert. Those guys are. I thought was fine enough. I don't think that really impacted what we saw. That came all down to one team and one team only. So let's get into that one team and one team only, and how and the mindset and why sometimes Argentina quite a bit is just really disliked and sometimes despises the team around the globe. As I said before, there's other reasons why, but just on the pitch, they showed all their what, throughout that game. Not only were they not playing positive, that was been bad enough. And to be fair, I gave examples to Italy and stuff like that. This is where the difference separates from Italy. I don't see Italy in this case being like a team in this case here trying to find ways. Italy does some flopping. I mean, all of them do some flopping, but Argentina is like a level, like they're a level. It's like, and to be fair, I'm sorry to say it for my friends from South America, but like quite a few of the South American sides have a bad reputation. I'll put it that way of some of that stuff, and they also have a bad reputation. Some of these South American squads, not all of them, because I said before, I think Brazil still plays with a certain set of like class or whatever the case may be. When they take the L, and they move on for the most part. That's it. Argentina, as there's a couple other ones that we saw what happened with Paraguay when they took that L to France, how they responded to it on the pitch and off the pitch. Argentina said, you know what, hold my beer. In this case, they say, here, hold this, hold my beer, hold my water. I got to do you one better, in a bigger stage. For the dive that was going on there, and I know some people giving the heat to the ref. I actually thought the ref was actually really well. He managed it really well, considering how much a favorite son in some ways, favorite son Argentina is to the FIFA Infantino. I think he did a great job of managing and pretty much giving them enough rope to hang themselves. So he warned them. He warned Hernandez. In this case here is like, he said, hey man, sorry, Fernandez in this case. You warned Enzo Fernandez. Listen, man, he gave the yellow card after the disrespect he's given earlier on, for the dissent and kind of talking a lot of trash and disrespecting the official. That was the first yellow. But so when the second yellow comes, like it was so obvious in the middle of the pitch, like the middle, right in the mid, right there in the midline, everyone could see it. And yet he was still fighting, saying, "Oh no, like dude, he want to set it up the VAR. VAR for what? When you can be blindfolded and you can still see what that looks like. There ain't no VAR required for that. Like, give me a break, man." So he gets tossed. He gets the red card. And so now, late in the match, they're down a player, Argentina. They continue to try to flop all they can to try to generate set pieces, trying to flop left, right, and center. And one of them, in this case, my friends I'm watching with, I didn't realize in this case, my friend, she says, "Wait 1 second." Did Messi just run into the guy, just jump right into the guy? It was so bad. Like, I would yellow card Messi on that. Like, are you kidding me? Homeboy standing there about maybe 2 feet from him, as he already gets rid of the ball, and he just decides, I'll just jump right into the guy. Like, what are you doing? Like, that crap is not football. It's not football. I'm sorry. And then, as I said before, thank goodness the result was the result, because there's a stat. No word of a lie. These dudes played 100 minutes. I'm talking about the fellows, the blue stripes and the white stripes, Argentina. 100 minutes. And did not have one single shot on target for 100 minutes. I don't know, is it shots on target or shots on goal altogether? I think it might have been shots on goal. Nonetheless, 100 minutes at least not having it on target. Are you kidding me with that crap? Are you kidding me? Like, that's an embarrassment. That's an absolutely freaking embarrassment. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man. Why don't you just put your sword down for the moment you started the match? 100 minutes, you can't get a shot on goal? Finally, in this case, Ferran Torres, as I said before, from the great header from Williams, puts them out of their misery finally. And we all can see there's peace in the world and everything's just in the world. Thank you for that nonsense. But no. Argentina said, we ain't done just yet, boys and girls. We ain't done just yet. Because at the end, when everything's done, whistles blown 3 times, we're done. Oh no, that wasn't enough for Argentina, because we knew we had to start, really getting into it at that point now. And so now we need to start getting into things and start, and start attacking people in this case. Leandro Paredes, who has a reputation of being I'm sorry, I don't use this word lightly, because I mean sometimes it'd be very problematic, but in this case, it's very apt in this case. He's a thug. Okay, he's a thug. And he went about doing his typical thuggish things where he decided, I'm sure Eric Garcia gave him a few chat in this case to tell him about himself a little bit. But for Paredes, in this case, to kind of put his hands on this man's throat and then toss him down, and then was looking to scrap with others in this case. Like, these guys are a bunch of jokers. A bunch of clowns. And I'll tell you this much. FIFA better give no little baby treatment for this joker. They better not. Because if they are so fast, and fair enough, I'm not knocking, I thought it was a bit harsh, but so be it. Because I don't think the Qatari was trying to injure Kone when that happened. Now, they got a little wild after that, and they definitely gave up the ghost after that. There were some suspect plays at that point. But when the injury happened to Kone, Canada versus Qatar, I didn't think the guy was it seemed like a harmless play. Just one of those things was a bad moment, bad timing, hitting the wrong place. Horrible situation. But they gave that dude about 5 games, maybe 6. Whatever the case may be, they gave him about that amount. Wherever they gave that dude, they better do that and then add another 3-4 games to it. Make it up to about 8 to 10 games for this dude. You can't be doing that there to anybody. That's assault. If that's on the street, that's assault. And then you're doing it here in the biggest tournament in the world, the biggest sporting event in the world. The entire globe's watching you. You're doing that there in the middle of the pitch. I'm sorry, man. That dude needs to go, man. That dude needs to go, man. And as far as as I said before, the stuff that's been going on with Argentina with their fans outside, in this case, or in the stands, and what they've said to certain people, as well as streamers, if you know what I'm talking about, check some of that stuff out. You can do the Google search on that, what Argentina fans have to say to other teams, other players, other fans. It's been disgusting, a lot of it. Disgusting. And this thing here, why would we be surprised? Why would we be surprised? Heck, even the manager got yellow carded in this case by the time the match was over, man. They ended up with 6 of them in the game, I believe. Yes, 6 were issued. Yellow cards. Okay, 2 red cards. I mean, because obviously Paredes got a red card automatically. And then, of course, in this case, we just talked about just now with Enzo Fernandez. Now, Fernandez, on a side note with him, he got a lot of mouth in this case and talking and stuff like that. He was giving it all to England and they're putting his ears up and all sort of crap like that. He got a lot of yapping to do in this case in the Cabo Verde game, I think, as well too. He trap talks it off trash. Fair enough. But hey, as the old saying, you want to talk that type of trash, that's fine. But when it comes back around, boy, don't believe me, folks gonna be enjoying that, be drinking up when it's on you, man. That's all I gotta say. But and then he went one step further. Actually, there's trash talking. Then what he did against the England match, he was put up a sign referring to the Falkland Islands. Oh yeah. On a side note, folks, never again tell me in this case here about keeping sports and politics separate. Anyone want to talk that type of mess? Sports and politics have been like this from the day organized sports was created. They never go away, guys. So this idea, it's like, oh, I just want to watch my sports, want the politics. Politics are always involved in some form or fashion. Just want to put that as a side note, as he's talking about the Falkland Islands in this case, and some signage after they beat England. That got a whole bunch of Brits going on this case here was like, really, dude, wasn't necessary. You weren't even born when it happened. Like, anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But these dudes, going back to these dudes here and the behavior and and some of the tackles that were going on was suspect. It was nasty business. The flopping, and then I said Paredes with pretty much the chef's kiss in some ways with the nonsense. Word is I heard in this case some of them turned their backs in this case when Spain were getting their gold medals. It was like, really, we're doing this? Anyways, that's all I have to say. Part of it is congratulations to Spain, as I said before. Props to them. Thank you for, in this case here, making things just in the world from a sports standpoint, for getting that done yesterday, because that was ridiculous. Argentina, go touch some grass and figure things out, man. Seriously, man. Touch some grass, man. Messi, been a pleasure watching you. You're probably the only person of the bunch in this case actually with some grace. With these losers you gotta hang out with. But hey, props to you, man, and you've had a great career. You've been fun to watch, man. I'll leave it there, guys. Talk to you next time. Once again, as usual, you can find me on Facebook, IG, Blue Sky, and X. You can find me right here on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Said before, the subscription's for free. Appreciate the support as always, guys. Take care. Keep it locked. Peace.